Today's Iran almost 2,500 years ago. Persepolis, Persia, the spring equinox 450 BC. 23 nations ascend a grand staircase carved into a massive stone platform. Armenians carry silver vessels with griffin handles. Babylonians, textiles, Indians, perfume jars. Ethiopians lead a rare, long-necked African animal. Each delegation brings tribute to the King of Kings. This annual procession endures for 2 centuries. Then, in 330 BC, during a wild feast, an Athenian courtesan named Thais stands and delivers a speech. She takes a torch, and in a single night, 200 years of construction turn to ash. But here's the true revelation. The Persians never called this city Persepolis. That's a Greek name, city of Persians, given by the very people who destroyed it. The Persians called it Parsa. We remember it through the language of its conquerors. I am Arthur, and we are entering the ceremonial heart of Persia, just hours before its spectacular downfall. This is the city that took a century to build and burned down in a single night. In 522 BC, a Persian nobleman named Darius seizes the Achaemenid throne through violence and political maneuvering. Darius already controls the largest empire on earth, stretching from the Indus River to the Mediterranean Sea, from the steppes of Central Asia to the deserts of Egypt. 50 million people. 23 provinces called satrapies. He already has 3 capitals, Susa for winter, Ecbatana for summer, and Babylon for administration. But Darius wants something different. Not another administrative center, but something ceremonial. A stage where the entire empire could gather once a year to reaffirm its unity. In 518 BC, Darius's grand vision begins to rise from the dust. Darius chooses a site in the Marvdasht plain in today's Fars province, at the foot of Kua Ramat, the Mountain of Mercy. His engineers design something unprecedented, a massive artificial platform covering 13 hectares, with stone retaining walls rising up to 18 meters above the plain. The platform is built from dark gray limestone quarried from nearby mountains, filled with mudbrick and faced with precisely cut stone blocks. It is not a fortress, the walls are too low for defense. It is a stage, elevated above the world. The workforce is international and well documented. In the 1930s, archaeologists from the University of Chicago's Oriental Institute excavated Persepolis, discovering tens of thousands of clay tablets inscribed in Elamite script. These were not royal edicts or religious texts, they were payroll records. The tablets list workers by name, profession, and payment: stonemasons from Persia, decorators from Media and Egypt, brick molders from Babylon, sculptors from Ionia. Women worked alongside men, paid in wine, sheep, and grain. There were even administrative records of special maternity rations, ensuring new mothers received additional grain and wine. This was not built by slaves. It was constructed by free laborers, compensated and respected across ethnic lines. The receipts prove it. Cedar wood came from Lebanon, gold from Lydia and Bactria, lapis lazuli from Saudia, turquoise from Chorasmia. The entire empire contributed materials and expertise. Darius commissions gold and silver foundation charters to be buried beneath the Apadana, the great audience hall. The inscription, written in Old Persian, states, "I am Darius, king of kings, king of countries, king of this earth." It lists a vast empire spanning the known world, from the borders of India to the edges of Europe. Darius dies in 486 BC, never seeing Parsa completed. But his son Xerxes inherits the vision and the resources to finish it, transforming it into the center of the grandest ceremonial display the ancient world had ever seen. Xerxes I continues his father's work with even greater ambition. Over his 30-year reign, he completes the structures that would forever define Persepolis. One approaches Parsa from the west, crossing the plain towards the imposing platform. A double-ramped staircase, wide enough for horses and chariots, leads up to the Gate of All Nations. It is Xerxes' statement at the entrance. A square hall, approximately 25 meters on each side, supported by 4 massive columns. Guarding the eastern entrance are 2 lamassu, colossal stone bulls with human heads and wings, each carved from a single block. Their eyes seem to follow you as you pass. An inscription in 3 languages, Old Persian, Elamite, and Babylonian, proclaims, King Xerxes says, "By the grace of Ahura Mazda, I built this gate of all nations. Much else that is beautiful was built in this Parsa, which I built and which my father built. Whatever appears beautiful, all that we built by the grace of Ahura Mazda." Beyond the gate, one turns south towards the Apadana, the audience hall. This is the heart of Persepolis. The Apadana covers 12,000 square meters, roughly the size of 2 professional football fields. 72 columns, each 24 meters tall, equivalent to an 8-story building, supported the roof. The central hall contained 36 columns, arranged in a 6x6 grid. 3 porticos to the north, east, and west each held 12 columns. The column capitals are masterpieces, double-headed bulls, lions, and eagles. Each capital weighs several tons, resting on fluted stone shafts. Today, 14 columns still stand. Imagine 72. The ceiling, made of cedar wood imported from Lebanon, was painted and gilded. When sunlight streamed through the high windows, the interior glowed gold and red. 10,000 people could comfortably gather here. East of the Apadana stands the throne hall, also known as the Hall of 100 Columns. Begun by Xerxes and completed by Artaxerxes I, it is even larger than the Apadana, a massive square, almost an entire modern city block but lower. Here, military receptions take place where generals and governors report. 8 massive stone portals feature reliefs of the king battling mythical creatures. 2 colossal stone bulls flank the northern portico. South of the Apadana is Darius's palace, designed to capture the winter sun. Even higher, carved directly into the mountain, is Xerxes' palace. From here, the king could survey the entire platform and the plain beyond. And then there is the treasury, a vast complex of storage rooms housing the tribute from 23 satrapies: gold, silver, precious gems, fine textiles, and exotic animals. Water reached the platform through an ingenious qanat system, underground channels bringing water from the mountains, a Persian invention that would spread across the Middle East and endure for millennia. But Persepolis is not designed for everyday governance. It is conceived for a single annual event that defines the empire, and every spring at the equinox the world comes to Parsa, Nowruz, New Day, the Persian New Year. For over 3,000 years, celebrated by 300 million people even today, Nowruz marks the spring equinox, when day and night are of equal length, when winter gives way to rebirth, when darkness yields to light. For Zoroastrians, Nowruz holds cosmic significance. Ahura Mazda, the supreme deity embodying light, truth, and wisdom, triumphs over chaos. Fire, sacred in Zoroastrianism, symbolizes purity and divine presence. Nowruz celebrates this eternal victory of light over darkness, of order over chaos. In Persepolis, Nowruz is more than just a religious festival. It is the annual reaffirmation of the empire, and it is etched in stone forever. Carved into the northern and eastern stairways of the Apadana are reliefs depicting this very moment. But instead of just looking at the ruins, imagine this. It is March 20, 450 BC. You are part of the Armenian delegation. You have traveled for weeks, carrying the finest silver vessels with griffin handles your artisans could produce. You ascend the grand staircase as the sun rises over the mountain of mercy. The smell of roasting meat and burning incense fills the air. Musicians play flutes and lyres. Before you, Babylonians in distinctive robes ascend. Behind you, Ethiopians lead a rare, long-necked African creature, perhaps an okapi or a young giraffe. You are surrounded by 23 different nations, all wearing different attire, ascending together to the King of Kings. You pass through the gate of all nations and enter the Apadana. 10,000 people fill the hall. 72 massive columns soar above you. At the far end, King Artaxerxes sits on his throne. You approach, kneel, and present your silver vessels. He nods, and a servant, in turn, hands you a gift, a golden bracelet and a bolt of fine linen. For this is not simple taxation, this is reciprocity. The reliefs carved outside commemorate mutual obligation, not domination. Later, the legendary banquets begin. 15,000 people are fed daily. Royal tables groan under the weight of sweet and sour stews, spiced with Ethiopian cumin, saffron, yellow rice, and exotic dishes adorned with edible gold leaf. The Greek historian Xenophon marveled that Persian chefs constantly invented new dishes. But the feast is not just for nobles. The payroll tablets show that even the common laborers who built this magnificent city receive extra rations of wine, grain, and meat. Everyone eats well. Around you, Babylonians, Indians, Egyptians, Lydians, 23 nations share a meal in an empire that feeds its people. For 200 years, this happens every spring. 23 nations ascend. The King of Kings receives. Gifts are exchanged. Feasts are celebrated together. The empire is renewed. And then, in 331 BC, history's greatest conqueror crosses the Hellespont, and everything changes. In 334 BC, a 22-year-old Alexander of Macedon invades Persian territory. In just 4 short years, he shatters the largest empire on earth. Through a series of brilliant, ruthless tactics at Granicus, Issus, and finally Gaugamela, Alexander crushes the Persian lines. King Darius III flees, and the Achaemenid Empire collapses. Alexander takes Babylon without a fight, then Susa. And then, in January 330 BC, he reaches Persepolis. There is no battle. The city surrenders. Tiridates, the treasurer, opens the gates and offers Alexander the keys. Perhaps he hopes for mercy. Alexander enters the ceremonial capital of the empire he has just conquered, and he is horrified by what he finds on the approach road. 800 Greek craftsmen, severely injured and permanently disfigured. The Persians had kept them for their skills, but physically mutilated them to prevent escape. Alexander is enraged. He sends the craftsmen home with gifts and pensions, but this discovery hardens something within him. For 3 months, from January to April 330 BCC, Alexander's army occupies Persepolis. They systematically loot the treasury. 120,000 talents of gold and silver. Plutarch writes that it is the greatest accumulation of wealth ever gathered in one place. It takes 10,000 mules and 5,000 camels just to transport it. The soldiers live in luxury. They inhabit the palaces built for Persian kings. They feast in halls intended for Nowruz celebrations. They drink wine meant for royal banquets. And Alexander faces a question: what to do with Persepolis itself? Spare it as a symbol of his own imperial ambitions. He has, after all, declared himself the successor to the Achaemenid kings, the new king of kings, or destroy it as revenge for what Xerxes did to Athens 150 years ago, when Persian armies burned the Acropolis and the temples of the gods. The decision is made during a feast, and the catalyst is a woman. April or May, 330 BC. The exact date is lost, but the night is not. Alexander hosts a symposium, a Greek drinking party, in Xerxes's wine flows. Musicians play, dancers perform. The generals celebrate the conquest of the richest city in the known world. Among the guests is Darius, an Athenian hetaira, a high-ranking companion, or rather a highly educated companion. Hetairae were educated, cultured women who accompanied powerful men and participated in intellectual and political discourse. Darius is the companion of Ptolemy, one of Alexander's most trusted generals and the future founder of the Ptolemaic dynasty in Egypt. At point during the feast, Darius stands. The room falls silent. She stands before the king and says something to this effect: "Alexander, your greatest achievement would be this: to take part in a torchlit procession, to set fire to the palace of the Persian kings, and to let women's hands in a single moment destroy what Persian power built over centuries. Let this be revenge for the Greek temples Xerxes destroyed." In 480 BC, Xerxes' armies invaded Greece, burning Athens and destroying the temples on the Acropolis. The wounds are still fresh in the cultural memory of the Greeks. The room erupts. Soldiers cheer. Alexander, swept up in the moment, intoxicated by victory, perhaps genuinely moved by the rhetoric, agrees. They form a komos, a victory procession in honor of Dionysus, the god of wine and ecstasy. Alexander leads, Darius follows. Musicians play flutes and pipes. The revelers carry torches, wear garlands, sing and dance through the palace complex. The target is deliberately chosen: Xerxes' palace, the symbolic heart of Persian imperial power. Darius, after Alexander, throws the first torch. The cedar wood, imported from Lebanon a century and a half earlier, is dry as tinder. The fire catches instantly. Flames leap from beam to beam, from room to room. Xerxes' palace becomes an inferno. The fire spreads, the Apadana ignites, the throne hall burns. The treasury, already plundered, collapses in flames. Alexander's army, camped nearby, sees the fire and rushes in, believing it to be an accident. They arrive to find Alexander himself piling wood onto the flames. The soldiers understand. They join in the destruction. The fire burns for days. Cedar beams crash down. Stone columns crack from the heat. Gold and silver objects in the treasury melt into puddles. When archaeologists excavate Persepolis in the 1930s, they find a layer of ash 30 to 90 centimeters thick. Black scorch marks scar the bases of the columns that survived. Xerxes' palace is the most heavily damaged structure on the platform. The Tachara, protected by its position, partially survives. Ancient historians are deeply divided. Some claim it was a cold, calculated act of revenge for the burning of Athens. Others say it was spontaneous, a theatrical catastrophe fueled by wine, rhetoric, and a single courtesan. The truth is likely both. The desire for revenge existed, but the execution was a celebration gone wildly out of control. Later, perhaps weeks, perhaps years later, Alexander returns to Persepolis and sees what he has done. According to Plutarch, he regrets it. He realizes he has not just destroyed a palace, he has obliterated a monument to human cooperation, to the idea that an empire could respect the diversity of its subjects, even as it demanded their tribute. Darius, for her part, marries Ptolemy after Alexander's death. They have 3 children. Ptolemy becomes pharaoh of Egypt and founds the Library of Alexandria, one of the ancient world's great repositories of knowledge. The irony is exquisite. The woman who burned Persepolis helped create the institution that would preserve humanity for centuries. After the fire, the ceremonial heart of the empire was gone. Persepolis was swallowed by time, reduced to ruins known only to locals. It wasn't until the 1930s that archaeologists finally unearthed its secrets, proving definitively that its magnificent halls were built by free hands, not in chains. In the 1970s, before the Iranian Revolution, partial reconstruction took place. 14 columns in the Apadana were re-erected, giving visitors a sense of the original scale. In 1979, UNESCO designated Persepolis a World Heritage Site, recognizing its universal value. The Gate of All Nations endures, and the lamassus still guard the entrance. The reliefs have remained extraordinarily well preserved. One can still discern the faces of the Armenian delegates, the details of the griffin-handled vessels, the folds in the Babylonian robes. The colors have faded, but the contours are perfect. The Tachara, Darius's palace, is the best preserved building. Its survival a testament to the quality of Persian engineering and its fortunate location away from the worst of the fire. The black scorch marks are still visible on stone blocks, scars from the night Thais threw her torch. What do these ruins teach us? They prove that the most enduring empires are not forged by fear chains but by reciprocity. Parsa was a monumental stage built by free, respected workers from 23 nations, where tribute was exchanged for honor. There is a profound irony buried in the ashes of Persepolis. During that chaotic celebration in 330 BC, a single torch brought down the physical heart of the Persian Empire. But fire can only consume stone and cedar wood. It cannot burn history. While Alexander's empire crumbled almost immediately after his death, the spirit of Persepolis lived on. The festival of Nowruz, the triumph of light over darkness, still unites hundreds of millions of people around the world every spring equinox, just as it did on that massive platform millennia ago. Today, the remaining columns rise from the dust like silent witnesses to a timeless truth. You can destroy a palace in a single night, but an idea built on unity and respect is utterly indestructible. In Conqueror's chaotic feast razed Xerxes' palace to the ground, but it could not touch the legacy of the workers who built it. Fire consumes stone and wood, but not history. If you enjoyed this, there are many more lost civilizations to explore. Let me know in the comments, what city should I reconstruct next? See you on the next journey.